Greetings, everyone. I assume we're going live. If so, welcome along to the Lekker Lounge. This is rather an impromptu Lekker Lounge. As you all know, there's been a lot of movement over the last few weeks and months over the line still whether it's going to go ahead in its original form. What are the alternatives? And there have been plenty of alternatives suggested, including the rather controversial solution of Australia hosting the series, which is still yet to be decided. We're expecting a decision in a couple of weeks. So we're going to sort of touch on that this evening. Try and keep you positive, try and keep you engaged, because this Lions Tour will happen in some shape or form. But we've also got a lot more exciting news to bring you because today has been the final details of the World Cup draw. We knew what groups and who was going to be in what group. They were announced a month or so ago, but now we know where these games are going to take place and when. And there are some absolute humdingers on the menu, including an opening fixture between New Zealand, the holders, and France, one of the most improved sides in world rugby of the last couple of seasons. So one to look forward to, and we also know exactly where Wales are going to be playing. And that is the exciting news, because we're going to be talking to Mark Gardner, the CEO of MSG, in a few moments' time. He's about to pop up. There he is, looking as handsome as ever. Evening to you, Mark. Mark is a guest on the podcast, as always. So too is Steve, our friend from South Africa, Tourism South Africa, who will be bringing us the very latest on the situation on the ground over there. We're going to be talking to a couple of legends on the show as well. We're fully expecting Rupert Moon, friend of the podcast, to drop in, as he always does, trying to flog his book, which has long since been pulped. So any copy you get your hands on now will be a limited edition. And we've also got Mr. Tim STIMPSON, the record point scorer from the last, the time before last, when the Lions toured South Africa, 2009, the last time they won in South Africa. What an epic tour that turned out to be. He'll be bringing us all his memories, all his thoughts on the next edition. And of course, there's a small matter of Wales against England in the Six Nations tomorrow, which I'm sure is very much on all of our minds right now. So all that to come, plenty more besides. But let's talk to Mark first of all. Great to have you along, Mark. Let's talk about the positives, shall we? Because we've seen the World Cup draw details today. I say positive. Let's get the elephant out of the room first, shall we? Because Wales's last pool game is in Nantes. And we all know what happened the last time the World Cup was in France and Wales's last pool game was in Nantes. I think there's a few Wales fans tuned in tonight who won't need reminding.
Ross, I kid you, today has just been the best day ever. When the draw comes out and you're part of it, like we are this year, and there's so much riding on it, you keep your fingers crossed and you pray that all the teams that all the home nations and all the teams that are part of our schedule just get not just the dates right, but also the best venues as well. So having a look through the whole setup today with England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, it just falls so perfectly. And the fact that we're always going to get Nantes, I think we get that at the last game today, when all should be, dare I say it, said and done. So we are going to visit there. Hopefully by then they'll have to play in 3 out of the 4 games. It should be wrapped up. But I need to be careful, of course, being a Welsh, but I'm speaking as a fan. But we do cater for all of the home nations.
Yeah, we don't want to tempt fate, do we? Because history does have a horrible habit of repeating itself. But as you say, Wales should be in a stronger position by then, particularly if you won a Triple Crown and potentially a Grand Slam by then. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself, as I say. Talk to us then about MSG's role in the World Cup. Because in the last Lekker Lounge, we spoke about the fact you had been officially given official status as one of the tour operators. Just explain precisely what that means and what that will entitle your clients to.
Yeah, we're still a little starstruck really about the application process, and today is when it really hits home. We had a workshop before the live draw today where we met all the other agents from around the world. So the poor Kiwis, bless them, were dialing in from nearly midnight over in Auckland. There's people there from Chile, sort of South Africa, China, Japan, and to be part of that furniture setup was incredible, and the assets that we got, and working closely with MasterCard. This is the first time that the business has had that official badge, We've had opportunities before with the Lions and other programs, and we've taken the decision to exit stage left because it didn't feel right for us. But with the ability to cater for all the nations around the world, so close to home as well, and having the physical base in France, it was remiss not to put in a really strong application, and it took a bit of jostling. We're out of the picture for a long time, and then with a couple of weeks to go, we managed to submit what we felt was a really detailed tender that helps with having a lot of bilingual staff and a physical base in Biarritz, and the organisers, who are the French this year. There's a French agency that looks after all that particular admin process. We warmed to them from an early start, and the conversations are very progressive. And when we finally found out, it was a really exciting time.
Hugely exciting times. And just to whet the appetite a little bit more, I think we've got a little video here just to give fans and potential travellers watching a little taste of what might be to come.
Tu savais, toi, que la prochaine Coupe du Monde de rugby va se dérouler en France?
Ça va piquer, mais on est prêt.
On sera là.
On sera là où on nous attend pas.
On sera en rugby, et bien plus encore.
T'en penses quoi, Marcel?
Just looks
That's
great.
amazing. I was listening to Benjamin Kaiser on a podcast earlier this week, the former French hooker, of course, played for Leicester. And he was saying how people sometimes underestimate just what an amazing destination France is, because it's close to us and we sometimes take it for granted. But the diversity of cultures and scenery and the dialects and everything that you can encounter in France is all there, in tightly compacted into one country. And the fact that this World Cup is spread around the country, and as we were just discussing, Wales's pool alone, there are 4 different venues for the 4 different pool games. So it really gives travellers an opportunity to explore what is an absolutely wonderful country.
And we're lucky that to have that physical base in France gives us a massive advantage, and it's the right time to give a shout out to Stuart, who is our director of European operations, who I imagine is listening this evening. He has that awkward job of running the European side of the show from about a quarter of a mile from the beach in the historic town of Bayonne, next to Biarritz. So that's front and central for us. We'll be scheduling our coordination from that particular base, and being there, you've got lots of airports there. You've got Biarritz, and then going across to Bilbao on the Spanish side. It really opens up all that Atlantic coast and the Pyrenees. And when the Wales Island were drawn in Bordeaux today, that's really exciting for us. You can get the super fast train from Bayonne up to Bordeaux in a couple of hours, and you'll see a couple of things that have happened with this draw. That is really distinct pairings. So you'll see the big games are on double headers. So Ireland are playing their first match in Bordeaux. Next day, Wales are playing against Fiji, and they've done that in a really nice symbiotic way around the tournament, so that fans who are making their way to a city have got the chance to see a second game whilst there. But what's also really exciting for the home nations fans, and I really think it had a bit of flack earlier this week, which I felt was misjudged, but the organisers have looked at the health protocols and have given an extra 4 or 5 days onto the tournament. So teams have got a minimum 5-day gap between games. So for any Welsh, English, Scottish and Irish fan here, you can go and watch your team play on a weekend. And the proximity of wherever we are in the UK and Ireland to France means that we're either there in a couple of hours on a plane. We can drive there, we can do coach trips, long weekend breaks, and you can pair up your matches. So for example, if you're a Wales fan, you can go and watch the first couple of games in Bordeaux and Nice, or the last couple in Lyon and and Nantes, or even catch Nantes and then quarterfinals in Marseille. And if Joe can bring up the match schedule, the slightly bigger one here, that might be a little too detailed to see. But I'm gonna go very positive ahead of a Wales England weekend here and say that Wales England are going to finish top of the group or first and second, and therefore they're going to make the quarterfinals. And both of those quarterfinals are in Marseille. So there's a really southern French feel to the English and the Welsh setup. Where September, nice balmy weather, should be a very, very enjoyable experience.
Oh, should be awesome, shouldn't it? And like you say, I always remember the Euros in 2016, you know, when a lot of my colleagues in the media were back and forth, and fans back and forth to France, you know, as you say, picking and choosing and not necessarily going out for the full hit, but tailoring their itinerary to suit themselves. So plenty of options, and it's far enough in the future, Mark, we can talk with extreme confidence about the fact this pandemic will be long behind us by then. And this is one thing we can all dial into and look forward to. Before we move on, tell us about hashtag Spiral Pass.
Oh, yes. It's gone out today. So we had the ability to launch as one of the official travel agents to launch that today. And the Spiral Pass is the credit of the great guys and girls in our team who came up with that this week. And it's there to... It's really unique and it's different to any other operator that's put a package out there early doors. So it's £50 per person, and that gives you a guaranteed opportunity of buying our packages when they're released. The moment you do that, we'll double that down and give you another 50 quid spend of money on top of the trip, whilst making also a charitable donation of £5 a head to the charities that we select in France. Like 1 million rand in South Africa, we'll have something similar set up in France. We're really key. I know that we're getting lots of inquiries today when your package is on sale. Well, we didn't get any heads up over the public today of that announcement, so we found out live at the same time where all these teams are due to be playing. And it took us best part of 2 years to get the Lions project ready, nearly 2 years for Japan, and it'll probably take us 4 or 5 months to have all the trips ready for the World Cup. So expect an August or September rollout, but that £50 physically gets you the place in the queue, and we got a limited amount of tickets due to our licensing. And whilst I can't reveal the stats from today, there's been a huge amount of chitty chatter on our Microsoft Teams group, and the numbers have been really, really positive for first afternoon's opening sale.
That is fantastic news. I think there is a general feeling of optimism, isn't there? My inbox has been full in recent days of emails from festivals like Green Man and Red Rooster, and all the things that haven't happened in the last 12 months now are tentatively making plans to happen again. So I think hopefully that traffic on the website will increase in the coming days and weeks, Mark, and we can all look forward to a much brighter future. Let's talk about the Lions, though, because it's still up in the air, and we've been ultra positive on the Lekker Lounge in the last couple of months for reasons that are obvious. We desperately want it to go ahead in South Africa. I know there's been a petition to that effect, which garnered loads and loads of support. At the moment, what is the state of play?
Well, it seems the statement that was put out at the beginning of January that promised something by the end of January or the early part of February, that we all reviewed and thought, that's a reasonable time frame. I respect that. Do your work, do your diligence, and take a look at what model works. The petition got over 6,500 people. You know yourself how wide that was shared within the written and the social media. We have it on record that at the board meeting at the start of February, our petition was discussed, so they had that official fans' voice. But they've done what is arguably sensible, frustrating as a tour operator with so many customers going, but they've bought themselves that little bit of time, and they've watched Boris's statement this week, which applies to England at the moment. The devolved governments will have their say. But as you pointed out, as a music man, Ross, with the festivals opening up this summer, Reading selling out in a matter of minutes, that they seem to have a case here for supporting a UK model with fans. Now, far from ideal. And I know when Steve's on shortly, that'll be tragic for the likes of ourselves and for Steve. But we know that that's certainly one that's on the table, as is a pointing of the tour to South Africa in February or March. That something's happening right now with the hotels around that time that are all reserved for the previous tour, that you can't get a bed in Sandton, Cape Town, or back in Joburg for 3 consecutive Saturdays in February or March. So whether that is a backup plan, that the likes of Sun City, which are also sold out, suggests that is still very much on the agenda. Arguably, our number one scenario would be lift it and shift it to next year. You know, we're hoping and praying that still happens. We've got hope. But really, being absolutely candid on this broadcast, we're none the wiser on what is going to come from the Lions at the end of March. What we do know is that they will be making a statement at the same time for this summer's series, because Wales is due to be in Argentina this summer, amongst other nations heading away. The Lions' decision, and also the 2022 summer tours as well, and Australia. Again, Steve will probably be happy when he comes on, being an Aussie. They've underwritten a lot of this by their government, and they put themselves out there.
Yeah, the altruistic Australian Rugby Union coming in to save the day. I think there's a few cynics on this side of the world and indeed in South Africa who rather doubt their intentions there. But Steve, as you mentioned, is a friend of the show, and he's on board this evening, as he always is, to give us the view from South Africa, what's happening on the ground. Are you there, Steve?
I sure am. Good evening, gentlemen. Mark, Ross, how are we tonight?
Evening, buddy.
That's good. It's funny you say, as an Aussie, I might be a little bit excited by this situation. It's funny, growing up in one rugby-loving nation, I now live in another rugby-loving nation, but I work and get paid by a different rugby-loving nation. So I'm not extremely thrilled, I'm not going to lie. I think, as Mark said, to your point, the best thing that we can hope for at the moment is to have it delayed by 12 months, have it moved to next year. Obviously, you would hope that most of the situation that's going on in the world is behind us by that point in time. But yeah, that's certainly what we're hoping for. And also, to your point, Mark, even though I work for the tourist board, we're very much none the wiser as to what the final decision is going to be as well, sadly. But yeah, apart from that, we're keeping our fingers crossed, of course.
Yeah, we all are, Stephen, and I suppose it is all speculation, given on what you've just said. No one really knows what's going on behind closed doors in those boardrooms, and there still appears to be a number of solutions or options on the table. Give us an idea of what's going on in South Africa at the moment, because a couple of Lekker Lounges ago, I know the R rate in South Africa was significantly lower than it has been over here, but I suppose the big hurdle is the vaccine rollout, which isn't going anywhere near as rapidly and as smoothly as it is in this part of the world.
That's correct, Ross. Yeah, so the transmission rate's still quite low down there, which is very handy. Although, obviously, after seeing what happened, not just in the UK, but also Europe over the past winter, I think there is a little bit of doubt starting to cloud people down there. But the figures are looking quite handy. But you're right. The vaccine issue is what's been sort of prominent, particularly in the news at the moment regarding South Africa in general. This strand that was first discovered down in the Rainbow Nation seems to be wreaking a little bit of havoc. So there were a whole bunch of vaccines sent down, part of the Oxford AstraZeneca program, but a little bit of evidence shows that it may not be as effective on that particular strand. So there are now 80,000 vaccines sent down from Johnson & Johnson, which is an American vaccination program. Only requires the 1 dose as opposed to 2 doses. That makes me sound like a medical expert. I am not, but I do trust what I read, of course. And there is a further I believe 9 million doses that will be sent down there all up. So that's as far as they've gotten with their vaccination program. Regarding a timeline for the vaccination, that's still a little bit up in the air at the moment as well. But the 2 priority groups have been those who are clinically or medically vulnerable and frontline medical staff, who will be the first to receive their vaccines. And of course, some of them have already had the jab, including the president of South Africa. But yeah, more news when it comes.
Okay, thanks, Steve. We won't dwell too much because, as you know, we are kind of speculating wildly here, and we're all keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that things will improve rapidly. And as Mark has mentioned, there seems to be a kind of clandestine solution of maybe February or March of next year, based on the situation with hotel bookings. That is just pure speculation, but also there is still the opportunity of shifting it a year, which we're all hoping will still happen in South Africa. On a positive note, you've been talking to us about some of the incredible things that our clients can get up to when if they do make it out to South Africa. And I believe the theme this week or this month is the winelands of the Western Cape.
Well, absolutely. I think, wine's probably quite an opportune, if I'm an opportunistic man, which I am, let's be honest, I think wine's the perfect opportunity. This is the perfect opportunity to talk about wine. Sounds like I've already had a whole glass or a whole bottle, but trust me, I've only actually had just a couple of sips so far. I think we all need a bit of wine or something to celebrate. There's so much positivity at the moment. And as Mark said, of course, each nation within the UK is going to make its own decision as to what happens exactly. But it looks like a roadmap here in England has now been announced, so there's a lot of positivity here in London anyway. So I actually already had this wine ready for tonight before the Lekker Lounge was announced, because it needs to be done. But look, for South Africans, they've been through 2 major lockdowns there, and those 2 major lockdowns have both meant that wine or alcohol as a whole has been completely banned. So the wine industry has struggled a little bit down there, unfortunately. What they've relied on is the international sales, which we've certainly helped with here. When it comes to South African wine, if it's me personally, it's a little bit chilly outside, although we've had a nice sunny day here in West London, which is quite nice. But I'd go for a red, and more specifically, I'd go for a Pinot Tage, which is quite a heavy and a very much a South African grape down here. For any of the white wine lovers, if you're a true Safa, you're actually going to have an ice cube or 2 in your cold white wine. As an Aussie, I find that abominable, but that is the thing that you do down in the Rainbow Nation. A Chenin Blanc, nice, crisp, and perfect to have with any meal. But the 2 main wines that I've spoken about this evening, of course, they've got plenty of other ones that people have heard of, but those are the sort of the unique wines to South Africa. You don't hear of Chenin Blancs or a Pinot Tage being produced in any other region around the world. But these 2 particular types of wine, not only a favorite among international guests, but amongst the domestic market as well. And the one thing that's been great coming after and in between the 2 lockdowns in South Africa is the ability to travel domestically within their own country. And actually stats have shown us as the Government Tourism Board that a lot of people have traveled to the winelands for the very first time. A lot of people are actually traveling their own country, which is fantastic. Getting out of Cape Town, I mean, within 15 minutes, you're already starting to drive through a lot of wineries. You've got Constantia, which is one of the oldest wineries and certainly has some of the oldest vines in the Southern Hemisphere, let alone South Africa. But wine sort of made its way down to South Africa, or what was then a Dutch colony. It was French Huguenots. Of course, France is pretty big at the moment. We were just talking about that before. They brought wine into the area. They taught the Dutch at the time, which became the Afrikaners, how to actually produce wine, and the perfect environment for it, or the climate, was actually found just a little bit out of Cape Town. So a couple of those wine towns, Stellenbosch, I'm sure plenty of people have heard of before. You've got Franschhoek as well, which in Afrikaans means French corner. That's sort of an arc back to the French Huguenots that first settled there in the late 1600s. These are probably the 2 more prominent of the wine towns. Now, if you're driving along, of course, you don't want to drive after you've been drinking, but many people will stay in Stellenbosch. It's the bigger of the 2 towns. Plenty of different types of accommodation to stay there, of course, and you've got quite a number of drinking holes to catch any good rugby games that are on at the time, as well as to have a few wines. But a lot of people tend to prefer about a half an hour drive away, going out and actually staying in Franschhoek. So unlike a town with quite a number of different streets, it's just got the one main road, and you've got a number of shops, cafes, restaurants, and then lots of accommodation on the side. So it's a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more boutique as well. But the thing that I love probably the most about Stellenbosch, Franschhoek, is the fact that you have an old railway line that goes through the area. It's not disused, it's actually been completely repurposed now. And there's a tram that runs along this particular line. It's just simply known as the wine tram, which is good. It's for people of all ages, but obviously people over the age of 18 are allowed to try some wine. If they start in a particular area known as Drakenstein, that is the main variation along the route, and there's actually a number of different routes as well. But if people stick to the tramline route, there's actually a couple of trucks that drive around dressed up like trams as well, which gives people some options and opportunities to go and visit other wineries that are not quite on that route. But if they do stick to that one, their first wine tasting will be on the tram itself as it's traveling along. And essentially, it's just a hop-on, hop-off system. So people can jump on at one winery, they can enjoy themselves, they can jump back off and then have a lovely wine tasting and perhaps see a wine and chocolate pairing and a delicious lunch at another winery along there. Goodness gracious, there's quite a number of different wineries to actually experience along just one of those routes where the tram line runs as well. Probably too many to discuss here. Now, if any of your fellow listeners are a little bit unsure as to whether they're going to make it now to South Africa because of what's going on, just a reminder that it's still such a fantastic country to go to. You will find rugby in every corner of that country. South Africans live and breathe this sport. And the other amazing thing is, apart from the fact that they're extremely welcoming, is they love a good game out there as well. You can even join in and play with them if you like. But look, the winery is a fantastic place. You'd actually get lost there for quite a number of days. It's not just all about wine. There's a beautiful gin distillery out there. And the good thing is, it's a great place to base yourself if you're not ready for the hustle and bustle of going into Cape Town. Going to the coast is very important. It's only a couple of hours drive away to the whale watching capital of the world, which is known as Hermanus. I've seen many whales going along there. That is a little bit later on in the year. The whales tend to appear. But look, there's some fantastic things around, and that gives you a little bit of a rundown on the winelands and my personal favourite, which is the wine tram in Franschhoek.
Steve, you truly are a fountain of knowledge, not just about South Africa, but clearly about wine as well. It's a passion that comes through. You mentioned, the fact that some of our clients might not get to experience this as Lions fans. We're still hoping they will. Mark, there is a Wales tour scheduled for South Africa the following year. And as we mentioned at the start, hopefully by then, that is far enough into the future that we can talk confidently about visiting all these wonderful places that Steve just mentioned.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There is. We haven't yet got full confirmation. It seems odd because England and Australia, Ireland and New Zealand all seem to be done deals. But our understanding is that Wales are going to go and play a 3-test series next year. We are desperately hoping that that's going to happen. There's also in September 2022, it's the Rugby World Cup Sevens in Greenpoint Stadium in Cape Town, which is another sort of back pocket option. And I had the pleasure of going to the Cape Town Sevens last year, and having gone to quite a few of the Sevens events around the world, Cape Town is right up there for a Sevens series. Now that's in September, where there's going to be a little bit better that time of year than July or August, and that would be something just to go and take in an event like that. By hook or by crook, Steve, I promise you that we'll invent our own series. We'll invent our own sport. We are going to get these people to South Africa somehow. We are not going to give up.
Absolutely. That sounds fantastic to me, Mark. And Ross, Mark, thanks again for having me on the show, as always. Before I go, though, I just want to throw something out. Mark, you've been to South Africa quite a number of times, as you were saying. You were there in Cape Town previously as well. I know we often do 2 truths and a lie at the end, but I just want to throw my own 2 truths and a lie out there for you specifically, Mark. Let's see how good you are with South African knowledge and how much you were listening just then. So guess which one of these 3 things I'm about to say is a lie. Firstly, South Africa's got the oldest vines in the Southern Hemisphere. Secondly, the national animal of South Africa is a tiger. And thirdly, there is also a marine Big 5 on top of the regular Big 5 wildlife that you have. What do you think is a lie out of those 3?
I'm sure you're going to ask Ross that question, don't you? Not me.
Ross, please feel free to jump in as well.
I think that could well be a marine Big 5. So I think that's true. So the national animal is a tiger. That seems like a lie, which probably suggests it's the truth to me. So I'm going to say the oldest vines in the Southern Hemisphere is the lie.
Okay, well, gents, I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed, but that's okay. So South Africa is known to have the oldest finds in the Southern Hemisphere. There is also a Marine Big Five, so well done. There's also a Little Big Five as well. There's lots of things going on. People should definitely Google that when they want to go to the Rainbow Nation. Wales is just one of the whales that you would see, not the country, obviously. It's just one of those things. But tigers are not from Africa at all, let alone South Africa. Tigers are found in Asia and on the Indian subcontinent. So, bit of fun for you guys. Keeps you on the edge of your seat anyway. We've all learned something this evening, which is important.
I should have followed my instinct. I did say that sounded the least.
You were so close, Ross. So close. Jen, so much. Thanks so much for having me again. Enjoy the rest. Keep our fingers crossed for South Africa.
Take it easy. See you soon. Right, allow us, if you don't mind, to indulge in a bit of nostalgia now, because I mentioned we had a bona fide legend coming on the programme, and he is waiting in the wings. It's a man who played in that epic, legendary 97 series against South Africa. The last time the Lions won in South Africa, and you'll all remember, I'm sure everyone tuning in tonight is an avid fan of that Living with Lions video, which has gone into the annals of history. I'm talking, of course, about the top scorer on that Lions tour. It is indeed Mr. Tim STIMPSON. Welcome aboard, Tim.
Good evening.
Great to have you here. We are going to indulge in some shameless nostalgia, because while we're talking about the fact we might not make it out to South Africa this coming summer, we can certainly always cling on to the memories of 97. And someone like yourself, who was there personally right in the thick of it, that tour must hold a very special place in your heart.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm gutted that we can't go back down potentially to do it again. But yeah, back in 97, I was just a kid. I just played a few games for England. And all of a sudden you got the call to go and play with, the legends. And, what a privilege, first of all. And you meet the Willie John McBrides, and you hear about the 71 and the 74 tour. And you then just think, Christ, I'm on the plane. And then you get, I don't know how much you wanted me to talk, but we were met off the plane like with traditional dances. The hooting and the spears and the skin and the nakedness. And it was like, yeah, this isn't Leicester, is it? This isn't Wakefield. This is a bit different. And then everywhere you went, it was, wait till you get to. And they were the cleaning ladies. They just didn't rate us at all. The whole place thought we were rubbish, just like these little skinny white boys about to get smashed. And we just had to rise up against them. Even our press, they were just there for the wine. And by the way, Chenin comes from the Loire Valley in France. So Steve needs to put that away. If he wants to claim that wine was invented in South Africa, that's shocking.
I didn't want to jump in. I had some lovely Chenin Blanc in the Loire Valley just this time last year, or the year before.
Yeah, you can go and get that. You can go and get that in the World Cup. But what an amazing! And obviously, I was surrounded by my mates. If like that time I was playing at Newcastle, so Living with the Lions is known by us as the John Bentley self-promotional video. And we got Tony Unwood on that side, and my old mate from Durham University, Will Greenwood. So even though I was a young kid, I was surrounded by people that realized what it was about, and we just had to try and step up. So training was ferocious. It's true what you see about Jim Telfer. He literally came out there with a broomstick, and if you went into any ruck or mall halfway up, you get smashed in the face. Wow. And it was it's not good for the concussion debate, but at the time we didn't know any better, and we were just knocking bone on bone, just waiting to get out and play against some South Africans. And yeah, I mean, I've got 1,000 memories. I remember who you room with, people like Jan Evans, just this quiet legend, just looking after you. And then, I don't know, Rob Wainwright, that bloke who lives on his own at the top of Scotland. But incredible roommates to be with. Some stories you can't tell. Some which is the best tour of all, because it was an amateur tour. It was, you train harder, then you went out and found the best surf and turf you could possibly find in the harbour, and then you'd have a few beers. I was the one guy in that video drinking Diet Coke, though, clearly, because it was a bad day. I must have had a hangover. But it was just an amazing thing. So you just get picked for any old team, play against the emerging Springboks. I remember my favourite trip was we went up to the High Veld. It was like after the boys had won the first test. And I was up there. And I think we ended up winning. It's one of those games where everything went well. I scored some points. Mike Catt kick the ball. All I had to do was catch it and fall over. That was my level. And but you're playing for it was just such drama. I suppose my best memory, to be honest, was when we won the second Test match, and I was in the crowd. So it's a weird thing. It's the biggest tour of your life. Every schoolboy dream to play for your country, and then England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales is 4 times that, because the banter's even better, the competition's even hotter. And but I was in the crowd. Quite rightly, they picked Neil Jenkins, a legend. He was awful as a fullback, but a brilliant goal kicker. So it was one of those. But I was in the crowd, and when Jerry, we do say again, it's such a shame it was Jerry Guscott that dropped the goal. Apart from that, it was a perfect tour. But we managed. I was up surrounded by the Boca by all these great big units. They're all calling me Van der Merwe, and you know what that means. And it was just amazing to be on this cathedral, really, really steep, all the heat, and we managed to win. And it's a weird feeling not to be on the field. But if someone says to me, Stimo, what was your favourite game of rugby ever? That was the one that I was part of, even though I wasn't on the field. So that's a weird thing to say. It's true.
It tells us what we need to know about the power of the Lions, I guess, doesn't it? And that was you've mentioned Telfer. McGeechan was the head coach on that tour, and I guess his philosophy above anything else is that it is one team. You forget national boundaries when you join up and put that badge on your chest.
Yeah, they were brilliant. In the first week, if you were caught talking to just an Englishman, it was a clique and you had to down a beer. So you weren't even allowed to hang out just with a back. You had to have a token forward with you all the time. And, sometimes that can be painful. Every back knows that. But we had this no cliques rule. McGeechan, what a great guy. One of my other highlights I'll talk about quietly because my kids are in the other room, but I ended up going out with Miss South Africa on the trip. She was using me for PR. There couldn't be any other reason. But I didn't know whether to bring that up or not, Tim, because you and I had a long discussion about this for a book that's coming out in a few months' time, and it was mentioned there. But I was gonna allow you to introduce that. The point wasn't Carol or for me to show off. It was just she was using me. It could have been anybody in a Lions tracksuit. It was a crowd pull with a helmet on. But I was supposed to go to this reception, a fantastic Lord Mayor's Ferrero Rocher type reception. And I just met this amazing girl. I'm only a kid, 23. And I said to Geach, I've met this girl. Any chance I could miss the reception and go out for a meal with her? And he said, Stimo, will that make you happy? I said, I hope so. Well, off you go. And then I asked the press, I said, guys, where can I take this girl for a romantic meal? And they told me about one of those beautiful restaurants with beautiful wine. And as I arrived, I realized I wasn't the only guy in the restaurant. All the press pack were there, and they'd put a table and a bottle of champagne, and they surrounded us. So it was an old-fashioned tour where you weren't, there were no cameras, there were no off-field antics that couldn't be reported because we're all in there together, and it was really that's what's so special. The Barmy Army, the England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, the singing in everybody's songs. I think it was Wonderwall that ended up being the tour anthem. But I was singing, Scottish songs, Irish songs, Welsh songs. We forgot all that. There was no competition between us. It was us against the world, and somehow we managed to pull it off because McGeechan knew how to build a team. He knew how to inspire us all to play without fear. And even before then, he picked a side that wasn't even the most proven side. Picking people like Tom Smith to get underneath Os Durant, picking all the rugby league lads that couldn't have been that popular back in '97, but it was Scott Gibbs and Alan Tate and John Bentley. Sort of, they were the guys that were fit enough and strong enough, but mentally tough enough, not to wait 20 minutes before you realise you're in a game, but to give it to these South Africans, just like John Bentley did with James Small and everything you've seen on the video.
Absolutely. And I think that therein lies the genius of McGeechan, doesn't it? It's to look outside the box, to go against the grain. And like you say, you've got guys like Dai Young on that tour, rugby league converts, a big, monstrous tight head you think would be the guy to go up against Os Durant. But then you've got Paul Wallace and Tom Smith, two small, nuggety guys giving away however many stones to their opponents. But that was the foundation of those Test victories.
Yeah, it was the only way we were going to win. And So McGeechan picked people that he knew he could mould, and they'd be prepared to play the game he needed, because they were bigger, faster, stronger. They probably had more beef than we had growing up. And if we took them on in their own game, at their own backyard, they were the world champions. They were going to bully us. And we managed to play around them. You know, it was one of those games when the offload was more important than winning the collision.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, life-changing. I remember one of the story, McGeechan, I'd probably cracked a couple of ribs. I got caught by one of the big farmers. You know, there's plenty of elbows going on every time you're playing against Africa. And I remember going over at half time saying, Geech, I think I'm going to have to come off. I've got them all busted up. And he said, Stimo, come for a walk. Gave me a little bottle of water, and we had a little water. I said, Tim, who are you playing for? And I said, oh, British and Irish Lions. And he looked me in the eye and said, mate, it would mean a lot to me personally if you play on for 2 or 3 more minutes. Do you think you can? Yeah. I'm playing for the Lions. I'm playing for McGeechan. Your body becomes a carcass. And it's just, you know, you borrow the shirt and hand it back better than when it was given to you. And
I can only imagine what it must have been like having McGeechan say that to you in person. You know, we've all watched the video countless times, and it gives me goosebumps watching it from afar. And I think what was the beauty of that tour, Tim, is it was 2 years into professionalism, but the amateurism was still very much at large. And it is kind of the halcyon days, isn't it? The professional steps had been taken, so the standard was that much higher, but the amateur ethos governed what went on that tour. And you've already mentioned, you know, the drinking, the socializing, the lack of scrutiny from social media and whatnot. It was just the perfect marriage of amateur values and the first steps into professionalism.
Yeah, and you know, this is what's so upsetting for me if the tour doesn't go to South Africa this year, is that we had such great plans with Mark and MSG to go and build a living legacy. You know, it's okay going on the smash for 3 or 4 days, but we've all been there and done that. Yeah. To go on tour and go and build things and inspire the next generation would have been such a, you know, life-changing experience for us as well. So, you know, we can't get smashed and be as stupid as we were when we were 20. You know, we're in our 40s now and older, some of us. But the chance to still be boys, have fun, tell the stories, but then go and do something useful as well. It was just going to be such a good experience, and I hope we can still do that.
Well, Tim, we could talk for hours, but we're limited for time tonight, so we'll leave the Lions reminiscence there if we may, because there's also a pretty important game coming up tomorrow, which I'd like to get your thoughts on. Before we move along, though, there's someone else who's connected to MSG called Dan, who works for a company called Vaughan's Voyages in Llanelli, and that, of course, was a team that you broke the hearts of many, many years ago with a monster kick that bounced off 2 bits of the upright before eventually going over. And before we introduce Dan, he has recorded a special bespoke message that he'd like to send to you.
Good morning. Happy birthday, Tim. Hope you have a wonderful day celebrating. Which Tim? Tim STIMPSON. Leicester Tigers Tim STIMPSON. The guy that broke my heart all those years ago. I'm wishing him a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Tim.
Still hurts, Tim. Still hurts.
He needs to let that go, doesn't he?
I think he does. How long ago was it now? I've let it go. In fact, when I spoke to you the first time, Tim, I realised within a couple of minutes you're actually a lovely fella, and all that bottled up bitterness over all those years was just wasted energy.
I said the same to my dad about what he feels about Welsh people. I think we always like to shoot, you know, Wales were so good at rugby, weren't they, when I was growing up? They were just too good, and England were rubbish. So my dad, as a rugby lad, had lived with it all his life, so he still has that resentment. Me personally, I'm a European. You know, I still am a European, and I love rugby and what it does for people. And I've never had that bitterness against Wales. And then it was a real shock when these Llanelli people got upset. You know, they've accused me of all sorts of shenanigans, like taking a few yards, and you know, which is all true. But I've been offered the freedom of the rest of Wales, which is probably a good trade-off.
Let's bring Dan in, shall we? Because he is here live. Dan, get over it, mate. That's the message from Tim.
I can't. It's still, the hurt is still real, Tim. It's still real, honestly.
You can see that this is Dan's man cave where he spends most of his time, and it is a shrine. I imagine is there somewhere in that shrine, Dan, a little voodoo doll of Tim and a little diorama of that?
No. What we did last a few years back, we all chipped in and we got a tape measure just to see, if in the future if Tim could use it, better than the referee, but that's it. No, listen, all's forgotten. It's all in the past. I broke my heart. That was and is the only time I've ever cried in a rugby stadium. But still, we move on. It was one hell of a kick, and they won the game. There we go. Que sera, sera.
I could tell you a little story. It's a little bit sweet for me that when Scott Gibbs ran over England and broke England hearts when you were building the Millennium Stadium, and I was down in Cardiff. We played for England A that day, and I was wearing my blazer naively, going off to Monmouth to go and see my Welsh mates from uni. So you can imagine when I was on this train from Cardiff to Monmouth in my England blazer, and all the Welsh boys on the smash that couldn't get to Twickenham or out on the smash in Cardiff going back to Monmouth. Well, I got arrested by this carriage, or two carriages of Welshmen, who took my bag, took my blazer, took any sense of control away from me, but then plied me with beer for 2 days in the local boozer and told all my mates if they wanted to come and see me, they had to come there. And they just sang at me for 2 days, every Welsh song. And I was the butt of their passion. So I think it's just a bit of karma.
Of course it is. Yeah. I have no doubt you thoroughly enjoyed that day.
You realise that's it. Wherever you go in the world, you've got a load of mates that will take the piss, but they'll look after you. They'll put you in bed and make sure you don't, die in your own vomit.
Nothing says Welsh hospitality more than aggressively singing songs and plying you with beer. So I'm glad you got the full experience in Monmouth, Tim.
Yeah, go compare advert.
I can see that. Just as the tears are drying on your cheeks, Dan, we're going to talk to you a little bit more because Tim's probably not seen this for a while because he's such a humble guy. But let's remind ourselves what happened that day, shall we?
This is interesting. Tim Stimpson's going to have a look. What will Tim Stimpson do? And there's the answer. He fancies it. And this might be for a place in the final.
As I said, you just can't defend. They've had ample opportunities to win. To put the ball in the corner and just stop doing it.
58 metres between Tim Stimpson and glory.
I was lucky.
Dan, don't do it.
You want to blame me, but it goes all the way back to that dodgy copper called Dean Richards.
Yeah.
He said the referee doesn't give kickable penalties. Daz Garforth, the scaffolder, as we called him, a tubular technician, he'd collapse that scrum. And I just did my bit of the tyranny. I just stepped forward a couple of yards to make it a bit easier.
Yeah, I'm not really quite sure, Tim, why you were sort of held out to dry by Scarlets fans, really, other than taking 6 meters. But other than that, I don't really understand why.
I was watching. I haven't watched that often, and I just looked and you could see on the marks on the pitch that I actually was kicking it from further away from where the mark should have been.
Yeah, I think it was marginal, to say the least. I'll give you that.
No, you never thought it would come down to that.
Chatting Dan today, he's a laid-back kind of casual guy, but clearly, Dan, it still rankles, and Tim's rubbing it in now. So let's talk about tomorrow, shall we? If we were having this conversation a month ago, Tim, I think the bookies would have had England as 20-point favourites, and no one would have given Wales a prayer. But momentum's a funny thing in the Six Nations, isn't it? Wales have won 2 games almost by accident, and now they find themselves in a position where they're welcoming England to Cardiff, and the Triple Crown's on the line.
Yeah, what sort of motive? You don't have to. Look, chatting to Daniel, you got no surprise that the Welsh boys will be up for it. Yeah, they haven't fired, but because of people getting sent off in the sin bin, they've come away with 2 wins. And let's face it, England have been pretty boring. They haven't really got that midfield working. It's not been enough just to get forward platform and then kick the ball to death. So I want to watch some rugby. I'm more neutral than most people on this call will believe. I want to watch some great rugby, and I think if England don't play 20, 30, 40% better than they have done, then they've got no right to win. So Wales have got that great incentive to go and get a Triple Crown. They're very hard to get, and what a great opportunity with the England team still stuttering.
I was chatting to a friend of mine earlier today who's a staunch England fan, so much so that when he plays fantasy rugby, he refuses to pick a single Welshman in his team, which is borderline racist, if you ask me. But he was saying that he'd spent the day compiling his composite 15 just to underline how confident he felt about an England victory. And when he actually totted it up, he realised that he had picked more Welshmen than Englishmen. And the part of the field that exercised him most in was the back 3. Because you mentioned not much rugby being played by England, but you look at the respective back 3s and you've got some of the most exciting broken field runners in world rugby.
Yeah, you've got Liam, who's pound for pound the best player around. You've got a bloke taking his 100th cap. George North started as a whippersnapper at 18 and ran over a couple of tries, and he hasn't stopped since. And Reece Zammit is the most exciting player in the Premiership. Second to none. I mean, his pace is incredible, and his ability to chip and chase and score tries from nothing means that nobody can rest. So yeah, I mean, if Wales get parity up front, which is a standard story, I'm sure, and move the ball into the back 3, if England kicks woefully, I'm a Leicester boy, but Ben Youngs has got to stop kicking the ball down the throat of the best player. That's what we did with Scotland. You keep giving it to Hoggy, he's going to score a couple, and it's the same with Wales. Electric back 3, great in the air. We've got to change our tactics, which I hope they will, and then hopefully England will keep the ball and try and play rugby with it.
And Dan, we didn't even mention Josh Adams there, because of course George North is playing 13 tomorrow. Josh Adams, had it not been for his indiscretion, would have probably started both games at the expense of Lewis Rees-Zammit, and we wouldn't be talking necessarily about this global superstar that's been born over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Ross, you're bang on. I mean, that's rugby, that's sport, isn't it? Yeah, you get these opportunities. They come from sideways angles at times. In fairness, Lewis Rees-Zammit has taken that opportunity, and boy, did he take it against Scotland. And for me, it was what Wales needed. The game needed a spark, and he gave it the spark. I think Wales have lacked that. It's been said for many years when Gatland was in charge, and obviously Wayne's taken over now. That plan B, I mean, the plan A was working fairly well for Wales against Scotland for the majority of the game. But that plan B to take it to the next level, something different, and he just gave us that. And my only worry on Saturday is that Wayne Pivac has come out this week and said that, of course, that he's picked Jonathan Davies as a kick in 12. Personally, would I have picked Jonathan 3/4 on the weekend? I would have. It's a big game. It's England. Yes, he hasn't had a great amount of time. He's been injured a lot, but make no bones about it. England will not fancy the prospect of George North and Jonathan Davies. I don't think. Tim might disagree, but in midfield this Saturday, So it's going to be a kicking game. I think Wayne has come and said that. It's how they manage that. I don't know. We'll see on Saturday.
Tim, if I put you on the spot and you had to pick a back 3 from both teams, a combined back 3, who are you going to go for?
The Welsh one.
Entirely.
Look at how England play and how Wales play. I mean, England's midfield is suspect as well, isn't it? If you're trying to get the games, watching out for concussion and player welfare, if Farrell carries on tackling shoulder high with looking for big hits, and is 40 in there at 10 as ever.
Yeah.
You see, you've got your game line, haven't you? With 2 boys that are suspect potentially as defensive soft middle. So I think Gatland ball will work against that. It's then going to be, you know, have England got a plan B? I haven't seen enough of it. Occasionally England have played this, you know, dream rugby, but most of the time it's been around not getting caught in your own 22 and kicking the ball away and seeing if they drop it. Well, those three aren't going to drop it, are they?
You wouldn't have thought so. The bomb diffuser, Liam Williams, isn't he? And really failed in that task. You don't sound overly confident, Tim. Are you predicting a Welsh win?
Am I predicting? Yeah, go on then. Live on air. Let's do it. I mean, I predict a Welsh win because I think they've got everything to play for. Neither team's really found itself yet. I think that in some essence, you know, the Sarries boys, whatever, will have maybe played themselves into a bit more form. It could be a backlash.
Yeah.
By me saying this, I sort of want the England changing room to say, who the fuck's Tim STIMPSON? Excuse me for swearing. Let's go and prove him wrong and put 40 on Wales. Well, that is my dream. But honestly, I think Wales, you know, if England certainly lose a player, Wales have got a great chance of winning.
And that is the tactic so far, Dan, isn't it? Playing against 14 men. It's worked a dream for Wales.
Well, I saw a tweet after the Scotland game the weekend before last, and Sunday morning, you know, you get these tweets, and it said Wales are only 3 red cards away from the Grand Slam. I don't think it's quite as easy as that, but it's interesting, isn't it? I think the Ireland red card was obviously a bigger blow for Ireland than probably the Scottish red card was for them, because I generally believe Wales were in the ascendancy against Scotland when the red card came around. But obviously, it's a help, not a hindrance, isn't it, for the opposing team? Yeah, you know, Tim's mentioned already, if Mr. Farrell tends to lead with his shoulder on the weekend, I wouldn't say the likelihood is, but there's a chance that we could be down to 14 men again. But one thing I'll point out, it's been all Wales, and Tim, fair play to him. I think he's repaying to me for breaking my heart, saying that Wales going to win, right? But I generally believe Johnny May, I think he's a fantastic winger. He didn't have a very good game against Scotland, you know, that was widely reported, but I think he picked himself up against, albeit the Italians. I know, I honestly, I think he's bang on. His name is down. Hopefully the Lions goes ahead this summer. His name is down. It's on my team sheet every time. I think he's a great winger.
Well, Andrew King has just jumped on the message board and said, I've always loved Stimo. So we can take a guess as to what nationality Mr. King is. Gents, I'm afraid we've reached the end of our time here this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure. Before we go, we do like to do 2 truths and a lie. We've had a bonus one already from Steve from South African Tourism earlier. So Tim, I'm gonna ask you this one. 2 truths and a lie. This one is contributed by Titch from MSG. And he's asked me to read out the disclaimer that it is his responsibility entirely. So here we go. 3 facts, one of which is false, and you have to guess which. Number 1, the British and Irish Lions tour should be held in South Africa when it's safe to do so. Number 2, the British and Irish Lions are traditionally a touring team and should remain that way. And number 3, the British and Irish Lions should host the Springboks in the UK and Ireland. Which is a false.
And he works for a tour operator.
Of which Tim STIMPSON is an ambassador, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, and I've gone on record saying that the Lions should play in South Africa, and we should have waited as long as we had to, because it means so much. If that's not possible, then I think we should still be looking to raise money to be sent back to South Africa, to be sent back to help, you know, with the various projects that are going to be needed to help that country rebuild after COVID.
Very well said, Tim. And the last Lekker Lounge we already shared, there were many generous donations already to the Beast Foundation and the nominated charities. So as you say, hopefully that will still go ahead, even if worst case scenario, we're not allowed to tour this summer or next. But gents, it's been an absolute pleasure. Enjoy tomorrow. I'm sure we all will. And everyone watching as well, thanks for tuning in as always. That's about a wrap from us, but we will see you very, very soon. Cannibal Ken making a rare cameo appearance from Dan's Lounge. We will see you very soon indeed. Keep your eyes peeled on all your channels for the next Lekker Lounge. Take care. All the best.
All the best.
Cheers to everyone in Wales.